Hello, welcome everyone. Today's video, I'm going to talk about what you need to do and what you need to prepare for to lease a condo at Mactan Newtown. You probably can use this information for leasing a condo unit pretty much anywhere in the Philippines or a home. But because I'm familiar with leasing condos at Mactan Newtown here in Cebu, Philippines, I will speak primarily to that. And I know a lot of expats come over here. Some of them are well prepared. Some of them are not so well prepared. And this video is intended to help you prepare what you need to come over to Cebu, to Mactan Newtown, and lease a condo. I will not speak to buying a condo or purchasing a condo. I lease my own condo. I lease a condo at 8 Newtown Boulevard. I lease a studio unit. And this is the third time I leased a unit, so I feel I'm fairly versed in providing you with some information about leasing in the Mactan Newtown condos. Like I said on many other videos before, you do need to do a lot of research to find your condo unit. There are prices that vary. Studio units can go down as low as 25,000 pesos per month, all the way up to 35,000 pesos per month. And you have to research. I primarily use Facebook Marketplace. I'll use RentPad. There are various other websites you can use. If you're in the States, just Google renting a condo in the Philippines and it'll pop up a lot of different websites. But I primarily use Facebook Marketplace, and it takes me a long time. I research, I select a bunch of different units, and then I will message them through Facebook Messenger, ask them, is this unit available? And usually within a day, they will respond. It's rare that they respond within an hour or two. It usually takes a day or two for them to respond. But once they respond, you can start a conversation and ask them about the unit. Some of the questions I ask are, can you send pictures? I like to see what that unit looks like. You can also ask if it has a balcony. I'm one of these people that want a balcony. Is it an ocean view? And then what ocean does it view? Does it view the Mactan Channel, or does it overlook Olango Island and the island of Bohol? So there's two major ocean views that you can choose from here at Mactan Newtown. You can also find a city view room that overlooks the city of Cebu. So those are some of the first questions I ask. They normally will publish the rent price on Facebook Marketplace, but sometimes you have to watch out. Sometimes they publish a purchase cost, because a lot of these units they're trying to sell and they're also trying to lease at the same time. So sometimes on Facebook Marketplace you're going to see a large number like 5,000 pesos or something along those lines, or 5 million pesos. That's a purchase price. And sometimes they rent these units out daily, and you're going to see a price for a studio unit of 5,000 pesos or 2,500 pesos. That's a daily rate, and they use the daily rate interchangeably with a monthly rate, interchangeably with a purchase price. And that's really confusing to me on Facebook Marketplace. So I always try to solidify what the monthly rent is, and then they will ask you if it's going to be long-term rent or short-term. And anything 6 months or more is considered long-term, but that's also negotiable. And I mentioned in prior videos that a lot of these terms and conditions are negotiable. I've already rented a condo unit for 3 months, and they gave me the pricing of a long-term lease, which is normally 6 months. But you have to understand, once you sign a lease at Mactan Newtown, if that lease term is less than 6 months, you do not have access to the private beach. And I am sitting at the private beach as we speak, and that is the ocean right behind me. So if you sign a lease less than 6 months, you will have to pay a daily entrance fee to get into this beach area. I believe it is 350 pesos per person per day. The major questions are, what is the monthly rate on a long-term lease? Can you negotiate it? Then the next step is, if you find a unit that you like, then I try to negotiate the price, because most of the time they will quote you, the first price is usually going to be their high price. So for instance, when I quoted a studio unit on Facebook Marketplace, they said 35,000 pesos for a monthly rate long-term lease. And then I start negotiating and I try to get it downward. And in my most recent condo, I negotiated it down to 30,000 pesos. But once I got here, I talked to a lot of expats. They're in studio units and they're paying 25,000 pesos. There are many different leasing companies that are represented at 8 Newtown Boulevard. And that's the other thing you have to understand. When you contact somebody on a website or Facebook Marketplace, they are a representative of a leasing company, and there are several, if not many, leasing companies within 8 Newtown Boulevard. Some of the leasing companies have good reputations, some of the leasing companies don't have such good reputations, and you're going to have to figure that out kind of on your own. I've been lucky enough to rent from leasing companies with good reputations. They're honest and they honor their commitment. So once you find your apartment or your condo and you negotiate your lease term, my recommendation would be to have them send you a blank copy of a lease contract. If you're in America, they could send you a blank copy so you can read the terms and conditions. And I believe 8 Newtown Boulevard, they use a standard lease template. They have standard terms and conditions in that lease template. For instance, one of the terms and conditions is you cannot hang clothes on a balcony. And Celine and I discussed that on our latest podcast, that in order to keep the community neat and nice looking, they forbid you from hanging clothes on the balcony. And in your lease terms, you will see that they have a right to fine you for hanging your clothes on the balcony. And I believe they can fine you up to 5,000 pesos for each occurrence. So my advice is to read that lease contract over before you get to the Philippines. They're not that long. They're, I think, only 3 pages, but they do have some interesting terms and conditions. Another interesting term and condition that's typically found in a lease agreement, at least at 8 Newtown Boulevard, that's where I rent, is there is a penalty if you set off the fire alarm, if you accidentally set off the fire alarm. A lot of times people will be cooking in their condo units and they don't turn on the fume hood and the vent fan, and the fumes and the smoke that they're creating from their cooking activity will set the fire alarm off. There's a clause in the contract that they can penalize you up to, I believe, 10,000 pesos for setting off the fire alarm for no apparent reason. And that recently happened on my floor at 8 Newtown. There was a woman from Japan who was cooking, and she accidentally set the fire alarm off. But in her case, the fume hood was not working, it was not operable, and she negotiated the fine down to 0. So you have to be aware of some of the terms and conditions on some of these lease agreements. From what I can recall, I don't recall lease terms and conditions having penalties for setting the fire alarms off, at least in America. So you might see some things like that. But once you find your unit and you negotiate your price, you're going to need to send them a deposit to hold that unit. And that's also negotiable. Typically, to lease a condo unit at 8 Newtown, you're going to need a 1-month security deposit. You're going to need a 1-month payment for your lease, and then you're going to need another 1 month to pay your lease for the last month of the lease. So essentially, if your lease payment is 30,000 pesos per month, In order to get into that unit and move in on the first day, you're going to need 90,000 pesos, typically, unless you can negotiate it downward. And in a lot of cases, you can negotiate that downward. When I was in America, when I found my studio unit, I asked them, can I send you 200 US dollars, I think it was 10,000 pesos, just to hold the unit until I arrived in the Philippines. And I found that unit about a month before my flight to the Philippines. So they will hold your unit for less than the 3 months lease payments until you get to the Philippines. Again, that depends on how you negotiate with the landlord, with the leasing company, or with the owner of the condo. And everybody seems to be different. A lot of the decisions are made based on who the owner of that condo unit is. Some people will accept a small down payment just to hold it until you get here. But once you arrive on day one, before you move in, you're going to have to come up with your first month lease payment, your security deposit, which equals 1 month, and in most cases, your last month lease payment. And in a 30,000 peso studio unit, that comes up to 90,000 pesos. So in my case, I held my unit for 10,000 pesos that I sent from America. And when I arrived, I had to pay 80,000 pesos to the leasing company to get the key and move into that unit. The question is where do you come up with that money? Some people will take money out of their bank in America and they will travel to the Philippines with a big wad of cash. I don't recommend doing that. I don't do that, but I've heard of some expats doing that. I think that's a risky thing to do. What I do is I use an app called Remitly, and I actually can send money from my phone to the leasing company. And in most cases, the leasing agent or the owner of that condo will have GCash, and that's kind of a Filipino electronic wallet. It's similar to a PayPal in the Philippines. And this Remitly app, I recommend you set it up once you're in America. You can attach a debit card to it, and once you send money through Remitly, it removes that money from your debit card and whatever account your debit card is attached to. Usually it's a checking account, and it will send money to their GCash account pretty flawlessly. It sends it typically immediately. On rare occasions, if your bank has security measures, it might take longer. Your first transaction might take longer as well, because most American banks are sensitive when you send money to the Philippines because of the reputation here. So a lot of times your first transaction on Remitly might take a little longer. But once you have your first transaction under your belt, it should be fairly seamless and easy to send money through Remitly. That's one method that you can use to make that 90,000 peso security deposit. Another way that you can do it is a lot of expats will use Western Union, and I suggest that you set Western Union up on your phone. They have an app. I suggest you set that up in America as well, and you tie it to your bank account. A lot of Americans or expats will use Western Union, and they will actually send money to themselves while they're in the Philippines. You can go on your phone on Western Union and you can wire transfer money from your bank account in America to yourself in the Philippines. Then you need to just drive to the local Western Union store and pick up your money. You have to have proof of identification. So that's another fairly easy way that expats are transacting here in the Philippines without bringing a wad of cash with them on the airplanes. And again, I don't recommend you do that, but I have heard stories of people bringing large sums of cash on the airplane. I wanted to make this video to give you some ideas as to how you can finance your transaction. When you first move from a foreign country to the Philippines, moving into a condo, a leased condo, is going to take some startup cash. And I'm forewarning everyone that that startup cash, if you're leasing a 30,000 peso condo, that startup cash could be as much as 90,000 pesos, which comes out to $1,500 or $1,600 US. So you need to be prepared and have your banking in order before you arrive to the Philippines. That is my suggestion. And I suggest that you have your bank account set up on Western Union as well as Remitly. I know some foreigners are using an app called Wise. I believe that's also another electronic wallet application that you can use to transfer money. I don't have any experience with Wise, and I cannot speak to that, but I heard many good things about it. I've had very good luck using Remitly, and I'll include a picture of it in the video. And I've had good luck using Western Union. Western Union transaction fees are usually $5 or $6 for every time you transact. So my suggestion is that you, when you do use Western Union to transfer money to yourself, that you transfer a chunk of money, 10,000, 20,000 pesos. But at least you're not walking around with 90,000 pesos through the airports. I think that's the point. A lot of the purchasing here in the Philippines is cash-based. A lot of places do not take credit cards, so be prepared for that. And even if you have a credit card, make sure that once you start transacting with that credit card in the Philippines, that your bank that the credit card is drawn upon knows that you're using it in the Philippines, because they might stop some of the transactions because they think that maybe somebody stole your credit card and is using it in the Philippines. Unfortunately, the Philippines does not have a great global reputation when it comes to banks and financial institutions. I know my bank, when I first started transacting cash between my bank and the Philippines, they held some of my transactions up and they verified if these transactions were authentic. So that's why you need to have access to the phone number that's tied to your bank accounts, because a lot of the banks, once you start transacting, will send you text messages, and you're going to need to verify through that text message the bank information. And if you don't have your phone number for your bank set up to receive signal here in the Philippines, that could create problems for you. So the last thing I want to talk about is make sure that your bank accounts are set up with a phone number that you can receive signal here in the Philippines. I kept my American phone number on my Verizon phone. I have Verizon International calling plan. It's expensive. It's like $100 a month. But my life is on my cell phone. All my banking information is on the cell phone. And when I make transactions, they occasionally will text me for verification, for account verification. Sometimes with my credit card, they do the same. So it's imperative that you have your banking information connected to your cell phone that you're going to have in the Philippines, that's going to work, that's going to receive signal. So once you have all those things in order, you can make your down payment and you should be able to move into your leased condo unit fairly seamlessly. From there on, negotiating the rest of the terms and conditions on your lease agreement is up to you. I know some expats negotiate right to renew clauses. So if you sign a 6-month lease, they want an auto extension option negotiated into the contract, because they don't want to take the risk that the condo is then leased to somebody else and you have to move out in 6 months. So a lot of expats will negotiate a right to renew clause in their contract. So keep that in mind as well. That's your video for today. Leave comments below. I would like to hear what you have to say. But in summary, make sure you have your banking straightened away before you get to the Philippines. Make sure your bank knows that you're going to be moving to the Philippines and transacting here. You can use your ATM card here in the Philippines. I use mine on a regular recurring basis. It's fairly easy. I've never had any issues with my debit card and the ATM machines here, but I have heard stories where the ATMs will consume your debit card. You'll have to call your bank and try to work it out. So it's best off if you notify them ahead of time. So make sure that you have your banking information straightened out. Make sure you have a backup plan for getting cash here in the Philippines. In the event your debit card doesn't work, you should have a backup plan. And I think that you should have a backup plan of having at least the app Remitly or Wise loaded on your phone, attached to your debit card, ready to go. You should also have Western Union as a last resort to get cash here in the Philippines. That's the video for today. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. Feel free to share the video with anybody you feel is interested in this content. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.